it. I love the reason why we do it. I love what it's all about. I'm just going to press something on my phone because I'm not seeing. Got it. Right. Okay. Yeah, I love everything about it. I love the whole thing and what it's all about. But the products are absolutely superior. I'm going to waffle, do lots and lots of waffling. I think if you have any questions, Joanna will sort of sort them out for you and ask me anything you want other than my weight. I won't tell you that. I'm just
absolutely. Yeah. If you've got any questions for Sandy as we're going along, pop them in the chat, and I'll pass them on to her because she's a bit too far away to read them herself. Yes,
I can't see them. I'm just going to say hi to Rita because bless her, she's up there in Haworth, and love Rita to bits, and she's worked hard to try and get a little crowd of people together to watch this. Now, before we start this Yorkist Tart, which I'll explain why it's called that in a moment, I just want to point out that Joanna sent me the box of most fabulous products, fair trade products with sweet things in mind. So if you could just look at the front here, I've got them down here. We've got some beautiful divine chocolate. We've got some divine cooking chocolate. Now, I can tell you that don't be stuck thinking that you can't eat cooking chocolate, because I've eaten a bar that. So don't worry about that. But use whichever. It's good enough to cook with. It's good enough to eat. Fabulous. Also, we've got some white chocolate too. And then what came as well were these gorgeous little dried unsweetened cherries. And I think there was sour cherries and cherries. Well, I kind of couldn't help myself, but I've been baking some other things. Now, I'm going to get them out a bit later on. And there isn't the recipes online for the things I've got to show you. But just hold fast, because they couldn't be simpler, and I can talk you through them, and we can write the recipes down if you find yourself a pen between now and the end of the show, and we can do that. So
before you move on, Sandy, I want to thank Fairtrade Bradford, because they're the people who sponsored the event tonight. They're the people who financed all of those amazing ingredients for you to let you have a play with all the Fairtrade ingredients. So thank you so much to Fairtrade Bradford.
Thank you, Fairtrade Bradford, and rock Bradford. Bradford rocks, because I work in Bradford at County Salt School, and I love Bradford. Love it, love it. So we'll get it back on its feet, hey? Come on, let's keep going. Now, let me talk about Yorkist Tart. Why is it called Yorkist Tart? Yorkist Tart made with the Hollywood pastry. Two stories I'm just going to have to talk you through before we go on any further. The Yorkist Tart is because I'm writing a book. Well, actually, we're just proofreading the final copy of the book. A few little tweaks. And the recipe book is 70 recipes that are linked, sometimes very tenuously, to people, places and things in the north of England. So originally the book is called Sandy's Northern Cooking, quite original. However, it does exactly what it says on the tin. And some of these recipes have names about places, have names of things that happened in these places, and there's a little story at the top of each recipe before we go into the recipe. So as you can imagine, the Yorkist Tart is about, it's about Rowntrees. Okay, not exactly fair trade. However, it is about the town of York and how Rowntrees and the chocolate factory came to that, and how it grew and how people came into it, and how it built in its reputation to become one of the biggest in the country, and then unfortunately sold to Nestle and has gone to Switzerland. So that's that. That's the reason for Yorkist Tart. Hollywood pastry. Hollywood, there's a Hollywood in England, but there isn't one in the north, I don't think, unless somebody corrects me. But this is named after the man that is Paul Hollywood, because this pastry I got the handshake for this pastry and this tart, because I then had to put ice cream and meringue on the top, and I was making a baked Alaska tart. And he looked at the pastry and thought it looked rather thick, which he said, I think this pastry looks a bit thick, Sandy, but we'll see. Now, his knife hit the pastry, and immediately it looked to Prue Leith, and both of them sort of went, oh, right. Well, it slid down, slightly crunching all the way. Perfect, perfect pitch, perfect pitch. He lifted this piece of tart to his mouth. It just melted on contact. He looked at my baked Alaska tart. He looked at the mint ice cream I put in it. He looked at the meringue. He looked at the pastry. He looked at the tart. And he was blown away, I have to say, blown away. To which he then put out his hand and said, there you go. Now, I thought I wasn't going to be, taken in by a Hollywood handshake. However, I grabbed it with both hands, absolutely grabbed it, cried at just the sheer overwhelmingness of this accolade, pulled the face of Noel Fielding across the workbench and gave him a big kiss, and then continued to cry a bit more, to which Prue Leith said, it's fabulous, carry on crying. Off they went. My life was complete. Haven't washed that hand since. There you go. Yorkist Tart, Hollywood pastry. Let's make it. So, I've got my big machine out. Food processors, gadgets in a kitchen. Yes, have them. Have them if they help. Don't have them because you think you have to. Soft margarine, soft butter, a big, large Victorian baking bowl and a wooden spoon is just as good, and it has been for Mrs. Bridges and all these kind of people forever. But sometimes gadgets work. Now I've got a Magimix here and it's big enough so it takes quite a lot. I don't have a mixer. So we're going to whip up this pastry. Now, what I suggest you do is make a double batch. If you've got plenty of eggs, do a double batch, freeze half. This pastry is so good and so rich that actually you could roll it out and cut cookies. The pastry is nearly like a biscuit. So I'll just get it cracking and then we can talk. And if Joanna's got any questions, I think somebody's popping up with some. Into the bowl, I've got 175 grams of plain flour. So I'm going to bob that in. I always like doing this weighing out thing. It reminds me of doing like Delia did on telly. In there's half a teaspoon of baking powder. Okay, you could use self-raising flour. However, we want a little bit of lightness in the pastry, but we don't particularly want it to rise. So this is why we use plain and a bit of baking powder. Into there, 50 grams of icing sugar. Once again, if you really want it unsweet, but I suggest you do put a little bit of sugar in. 50 grams of fair trade cocoa. We've got the divine cocoa here. Now, if this pastry...
Sandy, you've gone on mute. Do you want to go and have a check?
There we go, gone.
Better.
I obviously didn't tell her I was going to be on air. So, like I was saying, if you prefer a less cocoa-y pastry, less strong pastry, you could put 25 grams more flour and then 25 grams of cocoa and just alter your ratios that way. You could take a tablespoon of the flour out and then put a tablespoon of the cocoa in. I mean, go any less than that, and that just make ordinary white pastry.
Yeah. So I assume if you put more than 50 grams of the cocoa in, it's just going to taste too chocolatey.
Yes, and I think you would end up, it's short enough. I think the 50 grams is sufficient. Don't go more because you'll lose some of the gluten in the flour that binds it together. So you'll end up with an incredibly difficult pastry to work with.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find that 50 grams is enough. Now I'm putting in butter, 140 grams of butter. I am an advocate, and I'm not frightened of using margarine. I'm just a slight pinch of salt. However, once again, you could just use salted butter, which actually, with a rich pastry like that, just that little bit of salt in it does just bring it down. When I think we talked about this when we were doing the other fair trade things, a lot of baking and a lot of cooking, everything in cooking actually, is all about building layers. And what you're doing is you're building layers of flavour so that your mouth is experiencing a little bit of something else each time it chews. And that's where you get that satisfaction, and that's where you get that high-end feel with your baking, because you're just offering a little bit of something else. So like I say, I don't mind using margarine, I really don't, and I always make my sponge cake with margarine. However, I think when we're making something so rich as this, it deserves that buttery layer, the cocoa layer, the touch of salt on the back. You know, you're bringing in a little bit of sweetness, you're bringing in little bits of flavour, layers of flavour every time.
So I guess if we were making a vegan version, we would use margarine or something, you know, a vegan.
Yeah, but tell me then what, because when we're going to use 3 egg yolks,
yeah,
what would we use in vegan for egg? I don't know. You could actually, no, let me think about it. You could use a plant milk. It wouldn't be as rich, but it would be rich enough. So you could bind it together. You could use plant butter, and then you could use something like coconut cream. That would be nice, or a plant milk, an almond milk or something, and you would get a lovely pastry, just as lovely a pastry. Right, I'm just going to pulse this just to get those. Just to get that butter. Okay. Now, here we go. 3 egg yolks. Like I say, if you really don't want to use the egg, you know, please, if you want to do it vegan, do so. And then go the egg yolks. And then we'll just give it a second. And it'll all come together. And then that's that. No more noise. Just bear with me. There we go. That's it. So we lift this out. There you've got your pastry. Now, if you can just stop there, everybody, for a second, I'll unplug this and get it out of the way. And then you can see more. Okay, we all right there? Can all see that? So that's it. That's your pastry. It's rich, it's dark, it's pliable. But what I do like to do is I do like to chill it. I think it's fair to say that even pastries that you don't have to chill, they say, I think it's still always worth letting it chill right down. So you've got twofold here. We've got the pastry that we're just going to chill for a bit, and then we've got the biscuits, cookies. If you want to roll them out, cookies. I will have a go at doing it vegan style with plant butter and using a lovely rich coconut cream something like that, or the tin of fair trade coconut milk.
We've got a question, Sandy. Just if you haven't got a food processor, can you just use a mixer?
You can. You can. Well, actually, if you haven't got a food processor, I just do it by hand. I suppose possibly because I'm not the best. I don't particularly like washing up my gadgets. I always think it's a bind because there always seems to be a right lot to wash up when you have to do food processors. I would use the old-fashioned way. Rub your margarine, rub your butter into your flour by hand, and then when it's breadcrumbs, stir in your egg, mix in your egg yolks, and pull it together like that. You know, you won't go wrong. You could use a mixer if you do, but the hand way is equally as good. Now, any more questions? Oh, is that all right?
No, I was just going to ask about the chilling, because that's the sort of thing that I would normally or sometimes miss out if I don't really have time. What does it actually do when you chill pastry?
Okay, yeah, the chilling of pastry, I always thought that was a kind of a fallacy, and over the years I've learned that it does matter. What it does is everything's work like mad. So your flour and the gluten and the butter and the sugar of everything have been busy, and they have to relax, because sometimes if you line your tin with pastry that hasn't rested, it's got that tendency to over shrink when you cook it, because it wants to go back to its natural state. So if you let it go back to its natural resting state, then you roll it out, and then you line your pastry case and let it rest again. I know this all sounds very long-winded, but we're talking about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just to let it come back. So it's a bit like, if you can imagine pastry like a human, when you've done physical exercise, you cool down, don't you? You always cool yourself down. You stretch it out so that your muscles go back to where they know their resting place. And that's basically what resting pastry does. It allows everything to just go back.
Yeah, so it's very similar to when you take a joint of meat out sort of 20 minutes before you carve it.
Yeah. There's resting all over the place. Before you lift the cake out of the tin when it's hot, before you lift a pie out, before they take a biscuit off a cookie tray, just let it rest. It's either to set it, to firm it, or to just bring it back to that resting place where it's different. Yeah?
Yeah, great stuff.
Good. So, now, the pastry, when it's rested, I've got a little piece here from when I was doing earlier on. This is quite firm now, so it does firm up quite a lot. And this has been in the fridge, and I've lifted it out, and it's quite a lot firmer. When I roll it out, I tend to use a piece of greaseproof paper or a piece of cling film and put another piece on top. You don't have to. You can dust your surface with flour and do it that way. However, when you're making like a chocolate pastry, that can sometimes then tend to leave your surface slightly grey. It tends to take away that lovely blackness, the darkness of the chocolate pastry. So rolling it out between two pieces of plastic or greaseproof, 2 sheets of greaseproof, just enables you to not have to use any flour. And I wouldn't suggest using it as cocoa, because it's too rich, it's too expensive, and it's actually a bit too fine to use as a rolling out medium. So lay some plastic on top. I mean, I'm just going to slightly demonstrate this, but I don't really want to teach anybody to suck eggs, because I don't think there's anybody out there not rolled out before. It rolls out quite well. And what I would say is that it's quite forgiving. It patches well. When you are lining your tin, the only piece of advice and the only time I'd say to take very good care is when you're lining your tart tin, because you don't want any holes, because when we put the chocolate custard in, we don't want it to run out. So just so that you can see how the different ways that I've done this. This is this last little piece. I'm using the cling film as a way to support it. I'm just going to, it becomes quite easy to work with when you use the cling film to lower it, help lower it into the case. These are the individual tart tins that I used on Bake Off. And they're quite deep, but quite nice. And I'm going to show you all the other ways that you can make this tart.
And have you greased that before you've put the pastry in?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. You could as a belt and braces, but they are supposedly non-stick. Never right sure with those. So I'm just going to go in there, pull the cling film out, and it's helped me to lower it in there. Now, because we're going to bake this blind, what I'd do is I'd cut, but I'm going to cut not right down to the edge. Now, this is me just being super cautious, because if you've done sufficient resting, you're not going to need to have to leave a lip. Let me see. You should be able to let the rolling pin roll over, cut it off with that lovely, lovely edge. But what I always do, just because I can't stand it, is I would do that, as you can see, line it, but then leave a little bit of a lip up, put my foil inside there, line it with foil, fill it with the baking beans, and bake it for only about 15 minutes, that's all, in a oven 160, gas mark 4-ish, range Rita, I don't know. Moderate, just keep looking at it. I know Rita has a range. Now, here we go. In true Blue Peter fashion, here's one I made earlier. So this is one that's baked, okay? And then when it's baked, I use just an ordinary kitchen knife, an ordinary household knife, and I just slowly, while it was warm, cut the edges on the baking tray.
We've got a question. Is it, you said 160, is that a 160 fan or conventional?
Oh, 160 fan, or conventional, I would say about 170, bit hotter. Fan's always a bit less. So this, then you see, when it's baked, it's secure enough to do that. So when that tart's filled, can you see that we've got it's fragile, but it's also got a lovely shape to it.
Yeah, it looks
really nicely.
Really pretty, that.
Yeah.
I was a bit nervous when you did that on camera, just in case it collapsed, but I had faith.
And just it round the other side. In fact, I'd just said, these things happen, make a trifle. That's my answer to most things.
Yeah.
When it goes wrong, make a trifle. So we'll need that in a minute. Let's move on to the filling. So this has got a few stages. I want to just say that this tart does have a few stages, and I don't want that to put anybody off, because when you've made it and you start adapting it, which I hope you do, because it's all about adaptation, I should say, is I want you to vary the chocolate, vary the quantity of chocolate, vary the style of chocolate, vary the additions you put in it, whether you sprinkle things in it, whether you sprinkle things on it, underneath it, whether you put a layer of fruit, some of these soaked in a nice liqueur on bottom. You know, different ways. I'll show you when we've got this underway. When this is warming, I'll show you the other things I've done. So, in this pan here, we're going to warm 350 mils of double cream and 200 mils of whole milk. Now, sometimes I have to think a little bit healthy, and I use semi-skim thinking I'm doing myself a big favour. However, with the pound of chocolate that's in it, I don't think it really makes much difference. But what I have added in here also is a teaspoon of instant coffee. Now, whether you like coffee or you're not a coffee lover, just go with me on this, because coffee is the best medium to bring out the flavour of the chocolate. Coffee, just a touch, makes chocolate taste very chocolatey, if that makes any sense at all. But trust me, it's a definite. It's a definite.
Yeah, definitely. And because the recipe I use for brownies is the same. You're supposed to put a little espresso in there. Just make a little espresso to tip it in. And it really does. And you can't. It doesn't taste of coffee. It just really.
No, you know, some people say I don't like mocha. You know, well, no, we're not talking mocha. We're just talking a touch, just to bring out the flavour of the chocolate. Now, for the chocolate, what I've used is it's about 500 grams altogether. Now, that combination is up to you. I wouldn't at this stage use the white, because white is a different makeup. It's a different contents of more cocoa sugar, you know, more sugar in white chocolate. So you don't really have that it doesn't act the same as chocolate. So you could use 54%, you could use 70%. You can use milk. Now, I've used a combination of both, but I've still gone for dark, the predominantly dark. I use 300 grams of dark, and I use 200 grams of milk. I've made the dark one, and I would say that it's incredibly rich, and for serious chocolate junkies, more than it is for the common man, so to speak. It's very, very intense and dark, which I quite like, you know, quite like that, intense and dark. I always think that, you know, dating sites, which I have frequented before I met Tom, I always think that it was a good way to describe it, if you describe like coffee, instant coffee, you know, rich and dark and intense, light and fruity. And I think chocolate works the same way, really. So this tart is rich and dark, which, you know, could be ideal for somebody. So, like I said, two combinations, 300 grams of dark, 200 grams of milk, just to give us that combination, just to knock off that darkness a little bit. So I'm just going to lift those out of there, because I'll be bringing out the other things soon. And then what we need to do is we need to heat those up with the little bit of coffee. You could, if you haven't got coffee powder, then use a splash of, as I say, if you made some espresso, if you made some filter coffee, there's some fabulous fair grade Machu Picchu coffee around. So make some of that, put a splash of that into this milk and cream. So the milk and the cream and the coffee are there. Now, what we have here is 3 whole eggs, not the egg yolks, 3 whole eggs. So we just give those a little whisk. Now, if we go back to the vegan, I'm not quite sure. I'm not sort of up on my veganism, but I will certainly investigate what you use to set, because this needs to set like a custard. That's basically what we're making. So we need to know what to use. So these 3 eggs, And then I've got the milk and cream, and I'm pouring it just over the eggs and whisking as you go. Okay. Oh, that smells like the nicest milky coffee ever.
Yeah, I always wish we could smell what you're cooking when we do these couple-ons.
Yeah. Better we could taste it. Now, here's my chocolate melted. So that's my, and if you can see, that's the 200 grams of milk and the 300 grams of dark, and you get quite a really nice flavour in there. Now, what you could do, here's a little top tip. You could put some mint extract in there, and you could make this a mint chocolate tart. Okay. You could then maybe just put a sprig of mint on the top. You could put some orange oil in there. You could use orange chocolate. You know, Joanna, the fair trade do a plain chocolate with orange.
Yes, yeah, you can get that. Yeah, not just orange. You can get orange and ginger is.
Oh,
that would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Oh, ginger, some crushed ginger, in there. I mean, please, wow, you know, I'd like you to sort of flood Joanna with some thoughts on the variations you could make. You know, the ginger sounds lovely, chocolate and ginger, perfect combination. The orange, chocolate and ginger. The orange, lemon, I think is nice. It's a bit underrated. Now, as you can see, I'm going to pour the custard over the melted chocolate. Okay, I said it had a few stages. Once you've done it a couple of times, it ceases to be, oh, I have to heat my milk, oh, I have to do this with my eggs. But we're going to pour that through a sieve because we've used whole eggs. In the bottom, there's usually a little bit of, cooked white. So it's worth it. It's worth it to just sieve it, pour it through a sieve to get that combination, to get that silky, to be able to get that silky. Now, gently stir this, and as you stir, what occurs is you start to get this just silky, rich, chocolatey custard.
Fran's suggesting hazelnuts and chocolate. That would be nice.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of a praline type.
Oh, praline. You could make some praline for the top. Might go a bit sticky. You could use the Frangelico liqueur. That would be lovely just in here, poured into this, with some toasted hazelnuts on the top. You could use some amaretto. You could use hazelnut and almond. Sorry, chocolate and almond. That'd be a nice combination. You could, as I say, the dark chocolate. You could go totally milk, and you could use, I don't know, milk, and because milk has some nice combinations. I don't know, what could you use? What can we put with milk? What goes nice with milk chocolate? Trying to think now.
There's another suggestion, because Divine do a dark chocolate with raspberries and then putting raspberries on the case bottom as well.
You could. See, I've got some freeze-dried raspberries. You could put fresh. Actually, what would be nice in season is to put raspberries on the bottom. You could even use a lovely raspberry compote. Some of the, the fair trade jams that that we get, the Miraboo, not Miraboo.
Meru, yes, the Eswatini jams, yeah, sort of guava jam.
The pineapple one would make a lovely one with maybe the milk chocolate as a more light, summery type of addition. I'll tell you what I have done with this. It may not float your boat, but sometimes I've used, because I've had it in the fridge and maybe I've not had enough double cream, I've sometimes used like sour cream to make up the double cream, and it just, I wouldn't even say that anybody would notice the difference. It just has a bit sharper edge. It's less indulgent. It's a little less. I don't want to say fatty, but you know, like sometimes you can tell when something's all double cream.
Yeah.
But the sour cream is really quite nice. So as you can see now, we've got this medium, this beautiful silky custard that's ready to do anything with. In the meantime, while you've been making this, you turn your oven down. You don't need your oven on high, because what's going to happen is when we fill the case with this, it just sets. We're not cooking it. Nothing needs to cook. We just need to set those eggs. So I'm just going to lift this up, and then I'm going to pour this into the case. And what I want to do, why I put it on a tray, is I want to just take it, because it's not going to rise. I want to take it as near to the top, to the whole thing, as I possibly can. So, you know, probably all screaming, stop, 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 stop. Anyway, I'm stopping now. So that's right up to the top. That's the difference between you making a home-baked chocolate tart and that sort of high-end professional-looking chocolate tart, is that taking it right to the top.
Yeah,
and then
because I suppose because you're putting it back in the oven, you don't want the pastry to cook too much either. So yeah.
No, you don't, and you just get that real decadence. So it looks like it's about to run over. Once again, this is where I come back to the fact that spend your time, take your time lining your tartan with your cold pastry, peeling it off gently, patching up, getting some really good patching if there's any cracks, because as you can see, that will just end up going right through, and you've nearly got something upside down. So I'm going to lift this across to the oven. Pre-open your oven door. That's my advice. Lower that in, and we'll let that just bake away. Now,
so what temperature have you got your oven on now? Because we turned it down.
That's right down to about 120 fan. You want it on around like a gas mark 2. 120 fan, maybe 130 conventional. So not hot at all. Now we've got some left over. Now you could make a smaller tart. That would fill that. But of course I haven't baked that yet, so that could go in there. But this is where I'll show you what I've been doing on your behalf. Now, here I've made some individual ones. Can you see them? Can you see them, Joanna?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Let's move that down. I want to show you. Here we've got individual. Fiddly, I hate to say it, and I don't particularly advocate fiddle, but worth it. So lined chocolate cases, ladled in, filling. Great for like if you were having, like you have drinks and canapes. People like canapé parties and things now. Well, I think sometimes it's nice to come up with a sweet canapé.
Yeah.
And also, if you were to not make the pastry and you bought some sweet pastry casey fillings, sometimes you can get them even tinier, like a little
like a sort of vol au vent size.
Like a little vol au vent size. Fill them with the custard. Bake them for just 10, 15 minutes, just till they set, just till that loses that wobble. Let them go cold and set. You can hand them round like a sweet canapé instead. So we've got tart ones like that. We've got leftover like this, ramekins, poured into a ramekin.
So it's like a mousse there, isn't it?
Yeah, now this is, it's, I was thinking about this last night when I was doing these. This is more set, so it's more like a truffle.
Ah.
So it's in very, very rich.
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit like ganache, isn't it, with all the cream and the chocolate?
Yeah, yeah. So that's rich. You could serve that with a blob of sour cream or creme fraiche, something like that.
And some sharp fruits, yeah, some raspberry.
Yeah, that is rich. When I was thinking last night, you could let this custard go cold, and I think you could whip up some meringue, some egg whites, or the other sort of vegan version.
Aquafaba, yeah.
Yeah. Fold it through the cold custard before it sets, and that would give you a lighter version of this. That would give you more of a mousse.
Yeah, that would be a mousse. That'd be lovely.
That would be a mousse. But this is absolutely, this is gorgeous. I'm also just going to go a step further and say, at that texture, it's quite firm, that would roll into a little ball, roll in nuts or cocoa as a sweet truffle.
Yeah.
So nothing goes to waste. Everything, it's the same mixture, but it's just becoming different things. I mean, there are so many easy ways to make truffle. I wouldn't make that custard to make truffles.
Oh.
However.
You've got some left over.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've got some left over.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Fran's saying truffles aren't baked, and yeah, that I remember last year we did a truffle making workshop, and that is the case, that they're not baked. You just you sort of make up the mixture and then chill them.
Yes, this was just that idea of what to do with leftover. You could even just pour, serve it with a little lake of cream poured on top, and put some ginger or something like that on top of that. So that's that version. Here's another way of doing it.
Trish is suggesting that making meringues, and instead of having cream in the middle, put the custard in. But actually, I think you could probably get away with both, because it wouldn't be the same texture as cream. But yeah,
no, it wouldn't. What you could possibly do is fold some whipped cream. I mean, it's a double cream then, fold your whipped cream into your custard. You could pour it over. Possibilities. Now, as you can see, this is exactly the same as that's just gone in the oven, but I've made it into the long case, 12-inch case. And then what you can do there is you've got that ability to serve it in a nice finger.
Lovely.
Yeah. That's quite a nice way to do it. That's quite a nice buffet style way to do it. Or it can be really attractive, especially when you let it go cold and everything slices really nicely. What you could do, as going back to the canopy thing, like we said, is you could make it in one of these. You could cut it in four that way, cut them that way, and basically then just make small bite-size squares.
They're sort of like petit four then, aren't they?
Like a petit four, yeah.
With your coffee.
On here, sprinkle toasted almonds, or you could sprinkle freeze-dried raspberries. Yeah, that's a variation that you could sprinkle on there, or on the top of there, or anything like that. This truffle one, this one that we've baked in the ramekin, I think this would be the nice version to put a layer of compote on the bottom, or to not fill it up as much and then put the compote on the top. So you get in the truffle, the centre of the tart, but with the cut, the sharp of an apricot compote or something. So you're not having to eat a whole dish of, because that is quite a lot of tart filling in one of those little ramekins.
Yeah, you'd want something to take the edge off, wouldn't you?
Yes, you would. And I think the apricot compote would be nice, or like the pineapple jam. Right. While we're just winding up, I want to just talk about the other things I've done. Now, here we have some little buns, as we say in the north, buns or cupcakes or whatever you want to call. This is using the dried cherries. And a couple of nights ago, I put the cherries with a slug of cherry brandy over them, covered them in cling film and just let them soak. They soaked up and plumped up beautifully. I then took some of them out, most of them out, left the liquid, chopped them, and then did a basic Victoria sandwich mixture, which was 4-4-4-2, as my mother used to say. 4 ounce, let's do it the old-fashioned way, 4 ounce, 100 grams of self-raising flour, 4 ounce, 100 grams soft margarine, 4 ounce, 100 grams caster sugar, 2 eggs, all in together. Beat it, give it a good beat. Now, what I did there was I took out 25 grams or an ounce of the self-raising flour and put in the cocoa. When it was all mixed together, I added in the chopped cherries. I then put them into these little bun cases because they're quite rich with the cherries. So you could either just serve them as a little bun like that. When they were baked, while they were baking, I used the juice in a pan with a little bit of sugar, just a spoonful, and I let it reduce. It took about 2 minutes because there wasn't much left and it soon went down to a syrup. And when they came out of the oven, I just poured the syrup, just a little teaspoon over the top of each one. I was playing, but the result was pretty nice, which is why I brought it for you tonight. So you've got quite an adult little cupcake there. And then just decorated them with a few freeze-dried raspberries. But this is a rich and decadent with that hint of cherry and the cherry brandy, which absolutely went down the storm. A few were eaten last night. And then what you could do is you could serve it like that, or as your canopy. And here, I'll tell you what I've made here, is a white chocolate sauce using the white chocolate, which I will tell you, and you could just drizzle cupcake. You could drizzle those white chocolate. Okay? Now, white chocolate sauce. This is a winner always round. This is all just in hundreds. 100 grams of chopped white chocolate melted in a bowl over hot water or in your microwave, however you melt chocolate. In a pan, warm 100 mils of cream, 50 grams of butter, and just about a tablespoon of sugar. I put very little sugar in. I don't put much sugar in. I think I'm doing myself a favour, but given the cream and the chocolate, I don't think I am. But
yeah, that's the thing. There's so much sugar already in the chocolate that you don't really need.
There is. So you can really reduce it down. When the chocolate's melted and the cream is warm, combine the two together. Pour the cream over the chocolate and whisk it. Then you need to just pour it into a jug, and as it cools, it starts to thicken. So it gets thicker as it cools down. put in a bit of vanilla, just so you get those little black spots, which are quite nice. However, you can flavour it with anything you like, because what I next blended is this. So this is the white chocolate sauce. We've got it in a drizzle form here, which will keep in your fridge, keep for a week, so you can use it on ice cream, you know, squirt it on and anything. Actually, sometimes just pouring it onto, leaving the fridge door open about midnight, pouring it on the spoon and stuff. Or, believe me, it's been done. Now, with fair trade in mind, what we've got here is a cinnamon nacho, right? Cinnamon nachos. Let me just show you before we go. Cinnamon nachos. So, baking tray, tortilla wraps, melted butter, brush, this is just firming up a bit now, brush the nacho with melted butter. Oh, this is very soft butter. You don't even have to melt it. Just anything that spreads with a pastry brush. Okay. In here is some fair trade cinnamon and a little bit of sugar, be it brown or white. The combination of how much depends on how much you like cinnamon. I don't particularly do, but people do, don't they? Now, sprinkle that on, just like that. Then just gently flip them over. Repeat on the other side. You could use big tortilla wraps. You could use a wholemeal tortilla wrap, really. It's just quite nice. I just thought it was quite a nice alternative to make a sweet tortilla than always everything being about cheese.
Yeah, I'd not thought of it before, but yeah, it's a really good idea.
You could actually, if you wanted, they don't quite look as attractive, but boy, do they taste as nice. If you mix the sugar with a little bit of cocoa and did the same, and you could then make it sort of like you know, a chocolate nacho and the white chocolate sauce, and then a hottish oven. I've got it on here, 180. Pop them in. I do 2 trays at once, right? Pop them in. They're not going to be in. They're not going to be in for about 10 minutes, if that, depending on how hot your oven is, because they soon crisp up, because the butter soon crisps. So when they come out, break them up. Put your white chocolate sauce into a little. You can see how thick it gets, and then you've got a great movie night dessert.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And I think a lot of us I hadn't realised that was how you make nachos, that is just tortillas and sliced up into triangles.
I think they obviously make nachos very different when you're making a bag of nachos. They're a different thing, but that's basically how to do that sweet one. You could make a caramel sauce, but that white chocolate, using that divine white chocolate, brings out the flavour of the white. Because sometimes I don't know whether you can always taste white chocolate, but this really does, and the cinnamon lifts the white chocolate beautifully. And I think for a dessert, the white chocolate sauce and maybe a chocolate sauce, because you could do the same. You could do the same with the dark chocolate, replacing the white chocolate with the dark chocolate and the cream and the butter, and make a dark chocolate sauce with the nachos. So you could have your cocoa nachos, sprinkling your cocoa and your sugar together, just like that, and then sprinkle it over your soft buttered tortilla, breaking them up, putting them on a large platter, your 2 bowls of sauce, with some fruit and with some, makes a very, very communal kind of dessert. I think you could really serve that, a real talking point after a dinner party, to put down just sweet nachos and dipping sauce.
Yeah,
You know, and also pre-done, all pre-done. You've got time with your guests. You've got time watching the film as well. But gosh, you've got some beautiful things to make, you know, to have as a little get together.
Yeah, wonderful.
Certainly they're going on my menu as a get together.
Somebody in the chat suggested white chocolate and cardamom. I think cardamom would be a really nice thing to add in. There's a company that does spice drops, fair trade spice drops, and I think they do cardamom, and just adding a couple of drops of that would be really nice.
Perfect. That would be lovely. Once again, we've got the orange, but any of those flavours that you fancy putting on to make something sweet. I think the idea I'm bringing to you is that, you know, things like some of these things are not set. It's the fact that it's not set in stone, and that nachos, yeah, make them sweet. Why not? It's just finding out how to, and that's it. Once I've just pointed you in the right direction of how to, gosh, it'd be lovely to see, you know, the different alternatives that people can make it with, and the ideas and the little buns, you know, using the cherry. These are like little Black Forest beauties, really. And then,
absolutely.
Yeah, the little individual ones, you know, I just love them. I love the opportunity to create and play. And that's basically what it is. I mean, we've all been taught never to play with our food. You know, there's nothing nicer.
Yeah, you have to. And like you say, if it goes wrong, you just make a trifle. That's just how it always.
You make a trifle. There's nothing nicer. If they'd have gone wrong for a chocolate trifle, that would have been fabulous.
Absolutely. A couple of people are asking me about the recipes. I'm going to email the whole recipe to everyone who's signed up, and along with a link to the recording, so you'll be able to go back over it.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Fran's asking how long the big tart's gone in the oven for. You know, we've put it on at about 120.
Yes, we did put it out of oven. And how long for? I don't want to be vague, but you're probably looking at about 30 minutes. But this shallower one didn't take as long because it's shallower. What you're looking for is for the edges to just be set, and then the rest of it will set as it cools. So the deeper it is, the longer it's going to take. But try not to bake it too long, because then you do end up with your eggs starting to rise a little bit, and you end up too much with a cakey filling. It's still lovely, you just make a bigger trifle, but you want that silky truffled set smooth inside. So just until the edges, about, well, we'll do it old fashioned way, half an inch or about centimetre and a half in, all the way around, starts to just look like it's coming together, a bit like you would do if you were doing a quiche, just setting, and then just leave it another 5 minutes and then take it out, and as it cools it'll start to set.
So you want to still a bit of a wobble when you go in. Yeah,
you do. Yes, you do.
Marvelous. Well, thank you so much, Sandy. It's been absolutely brilliant. Lots of people in the chat thanking you for all your support for Fair Trade and for coming along and sharing the recipes with us. So yeah, it's been fantastic.
Thank you for asking me. And yeah, we could do all this. We could do the next one up at Haworth, eh, Rita?
Oh yeah, that sounds great. Definitely.
A few people around. We'll find a way of doing that.
Yeah. Well, we're one of the things I wanted to mention before everybody goes is the Chocolate Has a Name project. So I mentioned at the beginning, this is part 2 of our cocoa trilogy. Last week we were speaking to Kojo Kokotsi of Shared Interest about the challenges facing cocoa farmers. Tonight, obviously, we're cooking with lots of cocoa and chocolate, and we're really celebrating what we can do with it. And on Sunday evening, which is Ghana Independence Day, we have an evening event from 6 o'clock for the Chocolate Has a Name project. Now, this is a fantastic project. working with a young lady called Adele, who's based in Halifax, but she comes from a long line of storytellers and cocoa farmers in Ghana. And what we want to do is we want to teach chocolate making to children who are growing up in the cocoa growing areas of Ghana, because at the moment, most of the cocoa farmers are over 50, and the younger people can't really see a future for themselves in cocoa. So if we can teach them how to make chocolate, give them a sense of how fantastic an ingredient this actually is, it will help with them with the nutrition, but also give them an idea. There's a girls' school, so it's really important that we're supporting young women to think about becoming business women and what can they do with their lives. So wanting them to have a future in cocoa. So if you come along to our event on Sunday the 6th of March, find out all about the Chocolate Has a Name project and find out how you can help us do something amazing. So thanks again, Sandy. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to show you a film to see us out.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. See you again soon.